If you're seeing this right now in this specific moment of your life, it's not coincidence. It's not luck. You're here because something in you has already shifted. At the quantum level, at the energetic level, at the level of consciousness, you are not the same person you were 6 months ago, 3 months ago, maybe even weeks ago. And this change, this awakening that has already begun inside you, is creating a magnetic field that draws information, people, and experiences that match the new frequency you're starting to emanate. There's actual physics behind this. Your consciousness operates at a specific electromagnetic frequency. Everything you think, everything you feel, every belief you hold creates a signature that broadcasts into the quantum field. And the field responds by collapsing possibilities that match your broadcast. When your frequency changes, different possibilities become accessible. Different timelines become available. Different versions of reality start to organize around you. And something has changed in your frequency recently. Maybe you can't pinpoint exactly when or why, but you can feel it. There's a restlessness that wasn't there before. A dissatisfaction with things that used to satisfy you. Questions arising that you never thought to ask. Patterns that worked for years, suddenly not working anymore. People who were constants in your life suddenly feeling distant even when they're physically present. These aren't problems. These are symptoms. Symptoms that your quantum awakening has already begun. Most people think awakening is something you have to try to achieve. Something you work toward through years of meditation or spiritual practice. They're waiting to be ready. Waiting to be worthy. Waiting for the right teacher or the right moment. But that's not how it works. Awakening doesn't wait for permission. It begins when your soul reaches saturation with living asleep. When the dissonance between who you really are and who you've been pretending to be becomes unbearable. When your own energetic system initiates the shift as a survival mechanism. Not physical survival, soul survival. And once it begins, it creates a hunger. A hunger for truth that superficial answers can't satisfy anymore. A hunger for depth that small talk can't feed. A hunger for authenticity that performance can't fulfill. And that hunger drives you to search. You start noticing things you scrolled past before. Conversations catch your attention that you would have ignored last year. Videos like this one appear in your feed at exactly the moment you need to hear what they're saying. That's not the algorithm being smart. That's quantum entanglement. That's your field, having shifted to a new frequency, now magnetizing information that resonates with where you are, not where you were. You didn't find this video. This video found you. Because the version of you that exists right now needed to hear that what you're experiencing has a name. That what you're feeling isn't confusion or crisis. It's awakening. And it's already in motion. Here's what most people don't understand about quantum awakening. It's not a single moment of enlightenment where everything suddenly makes sense and you live happily ever after in perpetual bliss. It's a process, a reorganization, a complete restructuring of how you perceive reality, how you relate to yourself, how you move through the world. And that restructuring is messy. It's disorienting. It often looks like everything falling apart before it comes back together in a new configuration. But the falling apart isn't failure. It's necessary dissolution. You can't build a new structure on top of a faulty foundation. You have to clear the ground first. And that's what's happening. Old beliefs that you inherited without questioning them are crumbling. Old identities that you constructed to please others or fit in or stay safe are dissolving. Old patterns that kept you small and predictable and controllable are breaking down. And yes, that's uncomfortable. Yes, that's scary. But it's also the most important thing that will ever happen to you. Because on the other side of this dissolution is freedom. Real freedom. The kind where you remember who you actually are beneath all the conditioning. Where you reclaim your power to create reality instead of just react to it. Where you stop being a passenger in your own life and become the conscious driver. And the evidence that this has already started for you? You're still watching. Something in you recognized truth in what I'm saying even if your logical mind is trying to dismiss it. That recognition isn't intellectual. It's resonance. It's your awakened self confirming what your sleeping self is just starting to realize. You didn't come here to learn something new. You came here to remember something you already know. You came here to have language for the experience you're living through. You came here because your quantum field guided you here as part of the awakening process that's already unfolding. So what is quantum awakening actually? Let's be clear about what it's not. It's not a vague spiritual concept where you suddenly become enlightened and all your problems disappear. That's a fantasy. That's spiritual bypassing. Real awakening is grittier than that. It's the process of becoming conscious of what was previously unconscious, of seeing what was hidden, of recognizing patterns that have been running your life without your awareness. Quantum awakening specifically means that you're shifting frequency at the most fundamental level, not just changing your thoughts or trying to be more positive. Actually reorganizing the electromagnetic signature that your consciousness broadcasts. And when that signature changes, your relationship to the quantum field changes. Different possibilities become accessible to you. Different timelines become available. Different versions of reality start to collapse around you because you're no longer vibrating at the frequency that sustained the old reality. Scientists can measure this. When someone goes through genuine awakening, their brainwave patterns change. They start accessing states that were previously rare or absent. Gamma waves associated with heightened perception and transcendent experiences become more frequent. Theta waves, the gateway to the subconscious, become more accessible even during waking hours. The heart starts emitting coherent electromagnetic patterns instead of chaotic ones. These aren't metaphors. These are measurable physiological changes. And here's the part that connects to quantum physics. Your consciousness isn't contained inside your skull. It extends beyond your body as an electromagnetic field. That field carries information. It broadcasts your state of being into the space around you. And at the quantum level, where particles exist in superposition until they're observed, your field is constantly collapsing possibilities into actualities. You're literally creating reality moment by moment through the frequency you're emanating. When you're living unconsciously, your field is broadcasting whatever programming you absorbed from your environment. Limiting beliefs you inherited from your parents, cultural conditioning, trauma responses that keep you in survival mode. And the quantum field responds to that broadcast by collapsing realities that match it. You keep experiencing the same patterns because you keep broadcasting the same frequency. But when awakening begins, that broadcast starts to change, often without you consciously trying to change it. Something shifts at the soul level. Your higher self, your quantum self, initiates a frequency upgrade. And suddenly you're not resonating with the same things anymore. People feel different. Places feel different. Conversations that used to engage you now feel hollow. Ambitions that used to drive you now feel empty. You're not depressed. You're not broken. You're just no longer vibrating at the frequency where those things made sense. This is why awakening often looks like a crisis from the outside. Your life might appear to be falling apart. Relationships ending, jobs becoming unbearable, old interests losing their appeal. But from the quantum perspective, your life isn't falling apart. It's reorganizing. The old structure was built for a frequency you no longer inhabit. So it has to dissolve to make space for what matches your new frequency. Think of it like this. Imagine you've been living in a small room your entire life. It's cramped, it's limiting, but it's familiar. And then one day, a door you never noticed before suddenly opens, and through that door is a vast space. Bright, open, full of possibilities you couldn't even conceive of from inside the small room. That's awakening. The door opening. The recognition that what you thought was the entirety of reality was actually just one tiny confined space. And your first instinct might be to close the door again, because that vast space is overwhelming. You don't know how to navigate it. You don't have a map. And the small room, as limiting as it was, at least felt safe because it was known. But once you've seen through that door, once you've glimpsed the vastness, you can never fully buy into the smallness again. Quantum awakening is irreversible in that sense. Not because you can't resist it or slow it down, but because the awareness itself changes you. Once you know that your consciousness creating reality through frequency, once you feel that truth in your body, you can never fully return to being an unconscious victim of circumstances. The signs that your quantum awakening has already begun are everywhere once you know what to look for. Synchronicities increasing dramatically. You think about someone and they text you within minutes. You need specific information and it appears from an unexpected source. These aren't coincidences. These are your field and the quantum field communicating. Your tolerance for superficiality disappearing. Conversations that used to feel normal now feel draining. Small talk feels like sandpaper on your soul. You can't fake interest in things that don't matter anymore. This is your frequency rising to a level where lower frequency interactions create dissonance. People leaving your life without drama. They just drift away. And you realize you're okay with it. You're not chasing them. There's a quiet acceptance that not everyone is meant to be in your life at this new frequency. Questioning everything you used to accept as truth. Beliefs about success, relationships, health, spirituality, reality itself. Things you never thought to question are suddenly up for examination. Your awakening consciousness can no longer accept answers that don't resonate. Old patterns stopping working. Strategies that got you results before suddenly failing. It's like the universe is forcing you to find new ways of being because the old ways won't work at this new frequency. A sense that something is guiding you. You can't prove it. You can't explain it logically. But you feel it. Invisible hands moving pieces around. Doors closing that you wanted to walk through. Doors opening that you didn't even know existed. You're starting to trust that there's intelligence in the orchestration. If you recognize most of these signs, your awakening isn't future. It's present. It's happening. Right now. And watching this video at this moment is part of it. Your quantum field brought you here to give you language for what you're experiencing. So why is this happening now? Why are you experiencing quantum awakening at this specific point in your life? Because the timing isn't random. There are forces converging, both personal and collective, that have created the perfect conditions for your consciousness to expand. You're not awakening in isolation. You're part of a massive shift happening globally. More people are waking up right now than at any other point in recent history. Systems that have held humanity in certain patterns for decades are showing cracks. Economic structures that promised security but delivered debt. Educational systems that promised knowledge but delivered conformity. When external structures start failing, it forces people to look inward for stability. And that inward turn is often the beginning of awakening. There's also an information factor. For the first time in human history, knowledge that was previously hidden is accessible to anyone. Quantum physics, neuroscience, ancient wisdom traditions. It's all available. And when enough people are exposed to the truth that consciousness creates reality, awakening becomes contagious. But beyond the collective reasons, there are deeply personal reasons why your awakening is happening now. You reached saturation. There's only so long you can live disconnected from your true self before something breaks. Only so many times you can ignore your intuition. Only so many years you can perform a version of yourself that isn't actually you. And you hit that limit. Your soul said enough. You accumulated the necessary experiences. Awakening doesn't come when you're comfortable. It comes when you've been through enough contrast, enough challenge, enough loss, that you've developed the depth to handle expanded consciousness. Every difficult relationship taught you something. Every failure revealed something. Every moment of pain cracked you open. All of that was preparation. You started asking different questions. At some point, your questions changed. You stopped asking, how do I get this thing I want, and started asking, who am I really? You stopped asking, why did this happen to me, and started asking, what is this trying to teach me? Those new questions shifted your frequency. And new frequency attracts new level of awareness. And here's the part that's hard to accept but crucial to understand. The timing is perfect. Not perfect in the sense that it's comfortable. Perfect in the sense that it's exactly when you reach the frequency that makes awakening possible. You couldn't have awakened 5 years ago because you weren't vibrating at the level where awakening becomes accessible. But now you are. Something shifted, and that shift sent out a signal into the quantum field. A signal that said, I'm ready for more. I'm ready for truth. I'm ready to become who I actually am. And the universe doesn't ignore those signals. It responds with synchronicities that confirm you're on the right path. with information that appears exactly when you need it. You being here right now is the universe's response to a signal you sent. Your quantum awakening is happening now because now is when you became the version of yourself who could awaken. All the preparation is complete, and your soul is ready to remember what it always knew but temporarily forgot. That your infinite consciousness playing at being finite. That you've never been separate or small or limited except in the stories you believed about yourself. So what happens now as quantum awakening unfolds? Let me paint you the real picture. Not the Instagram spiritual version, the actual lived experience. Awakening doesn't happen in a straight line, it happens in cycles. Expansion followed by integration. Breakthrough followed by breakdown. Moments of crystal clarity followed by periods of total confusion. And all of that is normal. Because when your consciousness expands, you're bringing back awareness that your current system doesn't know how to integrate yet. There's a lag between the internal shift and the external reflection, between the quantum change and the physical manifestation. And that lag is where most people lose faith. You wake up, you see truth, you feel the possibility, and then you look around and nothing in your external world has changed yet. Same problems, same circumstances, and your logical mind says, see, nothing's real, go back to being realistic. But something did change. You changed. And when you change energetically, reality has to reorganize to match eventually. But there's a gap, and how you navigate that gap determines whether the awakening continues or whether you abort the process. Most people can't tolerate the gap. They need immediate external validation. So they check constantly. Did anything change yet? And when they don't see movement, they collapse back into doubt. And that doubt is a frequency that retunes you to the old reality. So what actually happens as awakening unfolds? People leave. Relationships that were built on you being your old self will naturally dissolve. Sometimes they just fade. And you'll notice you're okay with it. There's this quiet recognition that not everyone is meant to walk the whole path with you. New people appear, but not always immediately. Sometimes there's a period of solitude between the old connections leaving and the new ones arriving. And that solitude isn't punishment. It's necessary. You need space to integrate. And then, when you've stabilized at the new frequency, people who match that frequency start showing up. Your tolerance for misalignment becomes zero. Jobs that drain you become unbearable. Conversations that don't feed your soul feel like torture. Your body becomes exquisitely sensitive to what's aligned and what's not. And this is actually a gift. Your body is giving you real-time feedback about frequency match. Synchronicities become ridiculous. Reality becomes so responsive that you can't dismiss it as coincidence anymore. You're experiencing direct feedback from the quantum field. Your consciousness is affecting matter in real time. But also, exhaustion. Deep, bone-level exhaustion. Because awakening is energetic work. You're rewiring your entire system, so there will be days where you need to do nothing. And that's not laziness. That's integration and temptation to go back. There will be moments when awakening feels like too much, and you'll be tempted to retreat. This is the ego making one last attempt to reclaim control. You don't have to judge yourself for feeling it. You just have to recognize it and choose to keep going anyway. If you're in the middle of awakening right now, if you recognize the confusion, the exhaustion, the simultaneous expansion and dissolution, write "I'm awake" in the comments. Not as a declaration that you've arrived, as recognition that you're in the process, and your public acknowledgement creates momentum. Because here's the truth. Awakening gets easier when you stop fighting it. When you accept that yes, this is uncomfortable, and I'm going to trust the process anyway. Not because I know where it's going. Because I finally trust that wherever it's going is better than where I was. Let's talk about the part nobody wants to admit. The part where you resist your own awakening even though it's the best thing that could happen to you. Because resistance is real. And it's completely understandable. Awakening asks you to let go of everything you've used to define yourself, to feel safe, to navigate the world. Fear of isolation. When you awaken, you change. And the people who were in your life because of who you were stop making sense. And you know that if you keep awakening, You're going to lose these people. And here's the hard truth. You probably will be alone for a period, because you're shifting frequency and the people at your old frequency can't come with you. Fear of the unknown. Your current life might not be perfect, but you know how to navigate it. Awakening throws all of that out. You don't know who you'll become, and that level of uncertainty is nauseating. But awakening doesn't work that way. It asks you to step into complete darkness, trusting that a light will appear when you need it. Fear of responsibility. When that truth really lands, that you're creating your reality through your frequency, it means you can't blame anyone anymore. You're responsible for the frequency you choose to hold, for the reality you choose to create going forward. And that level of responsibility is heavy. Fear of being seen as crazy. When you start talking about consciousness creating reality, most people think you've lost it. And if you care more about external validation than internal truth, that social pressure will crush your awakening. And here's what happens when you resist. It doesn't stop the awakening, it just makes it more painful. Because once the process begins, resistance doesn't reverse it. Resistance just creates internal war. Part of you trying to expand while another part tries to contract. And that split is where suffering lives. But you can resist for a while and then allow. Awakening isn't a one-time offer that expires. It's a standing invitation. When you're ready. When the pain of staying the same finally exceeds the fear of changing. Awakening will wait. Your soul has infinite patience, because it knows that eventually, you'll stop resisting. You'll get tired of the fight, and you'll finally surrender. Not in defeat, in relief. You're standing at the edge. Quantum awakening has already begun inside you. You've felt it. You've recognized it in the signs. You know because the restlessness is there. You don't need me to convince you of anything. You already know. The only question now is what you're going to do with that knowing. Are you going to allow it? Or resist it? Let's be clear about what allowing looks like. It's not passive. Allowing is active cooperation with the awakening that's trying to unfold. Stop trying to go back to normal. There is no back. You've changed. Your frequency has shifted. So give yourself permission to let the old life dissolve. Through making small choices